and she remarked that Harry was perhaps a little bit too much in love, was possibly besotted and a bit weak, being manipulated by Meghan. And I think, unfortunately, that confirms what I've been saying or thought for the last few years, that sadly, Meghan never really had any intention of staying in the royal family. She saw it as a stepping stone, getting married to Harry, to new fame and fortune.
Okay, so apparently Queen Elizabeth might have thrown some shade at Meghan Markle just weeks before she passed, and no one's really talking about it. But now a few palace insiders are starting to spill, and let's just say the Queen may have had thoughts. The Queen didn't say much, but her actions might have said it all. Was this her way of sending a final message? Or was it just another royal moment we all missed? Before we get into the details, make sure you're subscribed and have notifications on so you don't miss any of the latest royal updates. In the final weeks of Queen Elizabeth II's life, most of the world was focused on her health, her legacy, and what the future of the monarchy would look like. But behind the scenes, something was unfolding. Something subtle, quiet, and very deliberate. At the center of it, Meghan Markle. According to multiple royal insiders, the Queen may have made a few final decisions. Decisions that reflected how she really felt about the ongoing drama with Meghan and Prince Harry. While nothing was ever said publicly, in true royal fashion, these quiet actions have started raising eyebrows since her passing. One of the most talked about moments was how the Queen handled Meghan and Harry's appearance at her Platinum Jubilee. The couple was invited, yes, but their role was carefully limited. No major photo ops, no appearance on the Buckingham Palace balcony. They were kept at a distance, quite literally.
The royal family were very keen to make sure that Harry and Meghan were mentioned in the court circular. That's the first time for a couple of years. And directly after the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, so they kept with the order of precedence. Well, that went out of the window in the service. What we saw in the service was they were relegated to the second row. So even though, he's the brother of the future Queen, he had to sit behind the Queen's cousins who come far down the line of precedence, behind the Duke of Kent and the Duke of Gloucester, and there they were tucked away. But what's particularly intriguing is Harry and Meghan arrived separately. They didn't arrive in the minibus with the minor royals. They had a car, so maybe that's something that was generously given to them, organised, by the Queen. But it meant that they arrived separately, so they had a sort of grand entrance.
Around the same time, reports suggest the Queen had been quietly making moves related to royal titles and future roles within the family. And Meghan and Harry's children were noticeably not included in certain early drafts of those plans. To the public eye, it all seemed calm. But now, looking back, people are piecing it together. The Queen may have used her final days to send one last very subtle message, one that didn't need words. Now, according to people close to the palace, she was making some quiet decisions. Not dramatic ones, but the kind that shapes what happens after she's gone. And yeah, Meghan and Harry, pretty much not part of that picture. Even though Harry was in the UK right before she passed, Meghan was not invited to Balmoral. That decision was fast and clear, and apparently it came straight from the top, which, let's be honest, kinda says a lot.
Prince Harry claims that he was not included when his family made travel plans to get to Scotland on the day Queen Elizabeth died. In his interview with Anderson Cooper on Sunday's episode of 60 Minutes, the Duke of Sussex spoke out about September 8th, the day the palace announced that the Queen was under medical supervision at Balmoral, and her doctors were, quote, concerned for Her Majesty's health. Harry was in London at the time the news broke, and told Anderson that he attempted to coordinate travel plans to Scotland with Prince William.
I asked my brother, I said, what are your plans? How are you and Kate getting up there? And then a couple of hours later, all of the family members that live within the Windsor and Ascot area were jumping on a plane together, a plane with 12, 14, maybe 16 seats.
You were not invited on that plane?
I was not invited.
Meanwhile, the Queen was spending more time with Charles and William. Insiders say there were private talks, strategy stuff, and some final say on how things should run once she was gone. Meghan and Harry's names barely came up, and when they did, it wasn't super warm. One source literally said the Queen was measured but disappointed. Yikes! The whole vibe at Balmoral was quiet, serious, and very controlled. Like everyone knew this was the end of an era, and the Queen wasn't wasting time on drama.
Prince Harry and Meghan Markle are sitting out Christmas with the royals, and Queen Elizabeth isn't exactly pleased. Despite the palace saying that the Queen gave Harry and Meghan her support, an insider tells us that she is disappointed by their decision and may never forgive them. Harry and Meghan previously announced they'll be spending the day away from the royal festivities. Instead, they will be spending it with Meghan's mom, Doria.
She's an incredible woman.
And while the Duke and Duchess did say this is in line with the precedent set previously by other members of the royal family, a source tells us it's a very big deal that Harry and Meghan aren't putting in the effort to spend Christmas with the Queen.
I had no idea.
She wasn't putting out public statements, but she was definitely making moves, including ones that affected titles, roles, and who was in the royal circle and who wasn't. Okay, so now let's get into the real tea. Because it wasn't just subtle moves or who got invited where. According to some palace insiders, Queen Elizabeth actually did speak about Meghan in her final months, just not in public. Now, keep in mind, the Queen was famous for keeping things classy and never airing dirty laundry. But behind closed doors, she was still sharp, still paying attention, and, apparently, still had opinions. Sources close to the family say that while she avoided drama, she didn't ignore the obvious tension. Meghan and Harry's interviews, especially the Oprah one, reportedly upset her deeply.
I need to do this for my family. This is not a surprise to anybody. It's really sad that it's got to this point, but I've got to do something for my own mental health, for my wife's, and for Archie's as well, because I could see where this was headed.
They didn't want him to be a prince or a princess, not knowing what the gender would be, which would be different from protocol, and that he wasn't going to receive security.
What?
It was really hard.
Not just because of what was said, but because of how it was said, out in the open, with no warning to the palace. All right, now let's talk about the royal title drama. Because Queen Elizabeth definitely knew what was up when it came to Archie and Lilibet. And let's just say, it wasn't looking cute. So here's the deal. According to royal protocol, the children of a son of the monarch, aka Prince Harry, are technically eligible for royal titles once their grandparent becomes king. So when Queen Elizabeth passed and Charles became king, Archie and Lilibet could have been styled as prince and princess. But that didn't happen right away. And the delay wasn't random.
Meghan Markle fans have divided the internet by saying she was the only one crying at the funeral, when obviously others were crying too. Meghan was seen wiping away a tear after the ceremony on Monday, also with a trail of tears clearly showing on her cheek. But it would be insulting to say that she's the only one who cried. The claims have sparked fury on Twitter, with many defending the remaining royals, saying it was obvious it was hard for them to contain their emotions. Especially the king, who looked devastated for most of the day. We can only hope that although there's still a fierce divide online, that this outpour of collective emotion can be a catalyst to bring the Sussexes and the royals back together. What do you guys think? Do you think they'll rekindle after this? Do you want them to?
Multiple reports say that Queen Elizabeth was already involved in those conversations before she passed. Apparently, there were discussions going on for months about what kind of roles, if any, Meghan and Harry's kids would have in the royal family. And spoiler alert, it wasn't looking great. Insiders claim the Queen was very aware of the optics and the drama. She reportedly wanted to avoid setting a precedent that would further blur the lines between royals who do the work and royals who don't. Even though she loved all her great-grandchildren, the Queen believed in keeping the monarchy slim and focused, which meant not handing out titles to family members who had stepped away from duties, no matter how high-profile they were.
She saw a different side to her, and very disappointingly, she started to have her doubts about her, and I think it ruined her relationship with Harry, which was a very close one. She claimed that she was rude to her for 10 minutes. She wouldn't tell her details of her wedding dress. She couldn't understand why she wouldn't talk about that. And she remarked that Harry was perhaps a little bit too much in love, was possibly besotted and a bit weak, being manipulated by Meghan. And I think, unfortunately, that confirms what I've been saying or thought for the last few years, that sadly, Meghan never really had any intention of staying in the royal family. She saw it as a stepping stone, getting married to Harry, to new fame and fortune. And I think that's what initially Prince William was concerned about, and that's why they fell out.
There was also talk of how giving titles might complicate things legally and politically. especially with Meghan and Harry living in the US, doing Netflix deals, book tours, and throwing around words like racism and institutional failure. So yeah, Queen Elizabeth may not have blocked those titles outright, but she definitely wasn't rushing to push them through either. And when Charles took over, he followed that same careful, cautious approach. In the end, Archie and Lilibet did eventually get their prince and princess titles, but only months after the Queen's passing, and not without plenty of back and forth. Whether that was Elizabeth's plan or just a royal delay, it definitely added to the sense that Meghan's branch of the family wasn't being fully embraced.
Harry and Meghan have said they want to split from the royals, but they want their children to be known as Prince and Princess and HRH. Now, Charles has said no to that. Explain the difference between Prince and Princess and having HRH on top of that.
I'm so glad you raised this, Koshi, because again, this is something that is taking up acres of newspaper inches. So we have to go back to 1917. I'll try not to be too geeky with this, but George V, in an effort to streamline the monarchy, he issued letters patent that said, children of the sovereign, grandchildren of the sovereign in the male line, and the eldest son of the eldest son of the Prince of Wales, eligible for HRH, which is a style, and the title Prince or Princess. That's why Harry's children didn't qualify when the Queen was on the throne. Now that Charles is on the throne, because those grandchildren are on the male line, technically they qualify for the HRH and the Prince or Princess.
And if that wasn't a message in itself, well, it definitely felt like one. So after everything, the silence, the subtle moves, the private comments, and the whole title mess, what does it all actually mean? According to sources, aka the kind that love to spill tea after the fact, Meghan was not expecting this kind of cold shoulder from the Queen. Especially in her final days, she thought maybe the Queen would soften, maybe even extend an olive branch. Instead, Meghan was iced out so smoothly, she probably didn't even realize it until it was already happening. So yeah, the Queen may be gone, but her quiet moves, still causing royal chaos to this day. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you don't miss the next royal plot twist.